Game week 12 is finally here. It's time to make some final decisions. Welcome to FPL Mate. My name is Dan. Coming up in today's video, we're going to go through all of the press conference news that is relevant to our FPL teams. And there's some big injury news that you need to know to make those, as I say, final decisions for the new game week. We're going to go through some Gabriel replacements. We're going to look at captains and goal scorer odds. We're going to have a look at some players who you should bench and who you should play this week. We've got a weekly wildcard draft for you guys, and I'm going to go through my final decisions for my game week 12 team as well. So loads to come, guys. Feel free to skip around the video. There are going to be bookmarks in this video, so you can skip around to watch the relevant parts that you want to see. We're going to do this every week. So guys, let's get started. So let's kick things off with the team news. And since we're in alphabetical order, perhaps we've got the most important piece of information first. So this is coming from Arteta's press conference. And as always, he doesn't like to give away too much. But what he has said is Gabriel is going to be out for weeks and that he's going to have another scan on Wednesday next week. So we are going to see Gabriel out for at least weeks. But the full extent of his injury is going to have to depend on the scan results, which we won't find out until next week. But it's not looking good. Rumours already circulating that we're looking at least a month, which is going to be 6-7 game weeks. Yes, I did just say 6-7. Yeah, throw the comments in in the comment section. We know how this one goes, but yeah, 6-7 weeks is how long game weeks is how long Gabriel's going to be out for. Other important press conference news from this one is that Calafiori actually hasn't trained this week, so there is a good chance that he is actually going to be unavailable for this game week. But what we do know is the injury doesn't seem significant, so we could see him back very, very soon. But just be aware of that one if you are a Calafiori owner. Now, what we didn't get in the press conference is pretty much any more information. However, with Victor Gyökeres in particular, there are rumours that he is going to be available for this game week against Spurs. So just something to consider if you do still have Gyökeres in your squad. Let's move through some of these other teams. Aston Villa, they are hopeful that Concert and Cash will be available for this game week. That is not a certainty, but it seems reasonably positive. Onana is going to be assessed and Mings is out. Well, there's going to be a late decision on Semenyo. He has indeed aggravated his issue with his leg. Maybe going down on one knee. No, of course, it was over the international break. It was, in fact, a real injury, apparently. So, yeah, we're going to have to wait and see whether he's going to be available to play against West Ham. So that is actually looking a little bit more risky than it did yesterday. Adams and Smith are available on that one. Looking at Chelsea, big news coming in as Palmer has fractured his toe in an accident that happened at his home, and he's actually going to miss the next few games. So that is a bit of a random one. We did expect Palmer to actually be back in the very near future, but because of a home injury, yeah, he's going to be unavailable. So good news, I guess, for Enzo, particularly as Enzo, Neto, and Badiashile have been declared available for this week. So maybe yesterday we thought that maybe Semenyo was more risky, Semenyo was more available than Enzo, but now it's flipped the other way around. Now it seems that Enzo is going to be more available than Semenyo this week, but this is what we know so far. With Crystal Palace, they have a full bill of health, which is great news there, and that does include Mark Guéhi and Eddie Nketiah as well. So those two players are going to be available. Mateta did have a small issue in the international break, but he's been training, so he's going to be absolutely fine as well. For Fulham, Muniz is out. He is going to be out until February with a hamstring injury. Robinson is still out, and Lukic is suspended. And as for Liverpool, Alisson is back and expected to start this game week. Florian Wirtz has picked up an injury. He's going to be out for this game week. Probably going to be just this game week, maybe next game week as well. Bradley and Frimpong, however, they're going to be out for several game weeks. So we're going to see them out for a while. And that could actually mean that Dominic Szoboszlai is going to be required to fill in right back. I can't say that for certain. Joe Gomez could also play there. But just be aware, guys, that we could see Szoboszlai play in the right back position as we've seen previously this season, which is going to be good for defensive contributions. He'll still be on his set pieces, but maybe open play attacking threat for Szoboszlai. Maybe dipping down a little bit compared to what we maybe expected previously. So just something to put out there and to warn you guys about if you are thinking about buying the Hungarian midfielder. For Man City, everyone is fit apart from Rodri and Kovacic, which is pretty bad news, really, because when Man City have a decent amount of fit players, that often spells rotation risk. So we could see a few players rotated here and there. Just be aware of that. Just be, I guess, pick players with just a necessary amount of fear, knowing that Pep Guardiola could rotate them at any moment. It's not good news for the attackers and the defenders, I guess. It's just the central midfielders that we can maybe be a bit more assured on who is going to start because of Rodri and Kovacic. Those are kind of those deeper lying central midfielders, and there's going to be less options there. But in other positions, not so much. Going to be lots of options, which is bad. For Manchester United, Šeško is going to be out for a few weeks. Mainu is back in training. Well, will be back in training from tomorrow. Of course, Man United don't play until Monday, so maybe there's a chance that for Mainu to make the squad there. Martinez is building fitness, but he is going to be out for this game week, presumably. For Newcastle, Pope and Tonali, they are going to be available for this game week. Gordon and Livramento, however, are unavailable, but they are getting close. So we could see Gordon and Livramento maybe back next game week, but not this one. Dan Burn is going to be suspended for this week following the suspension, the red card, 2 yellows last game week, if you can cast your eyes back that far. For Nottingham Forest, Hudson-Odoi may be in the squad. Wood is getting rescanned. Aina, Zinchenko and Louise are still out. For Spurs, Bergvall, Sarr and Kolo Muani are going to be available. Kudus is also back in training, so positive news there, but no Solanke for Spurs ahead of game week 12. For Sunderland, Alderete is available following concussion. He made his recovery over the international break with Paraguay. Reynildo is also fine following a hamstring scare there as well. And as for West Ham, Fulkrug, Potts, Mavropanos are recovering, and they're going to have late assessments for this game week. And Lucas Paqueta is another player suspended following yellow card accumulation from last game week. So those are all of the big pieces of team news. Still a few things to cover in today's video, guys, if you want to continue on. So, Gabriel replacements. And I think this is probably the biggest topic of conversation this game week. It really is. So, what I decided to do this morning was I basically just went through all of the potential defenders to bring in and tried to do my best in ordering them on who are my favorite picks and some of my less favorite picks. But I think anyone here is definitely a viable Gabriel replacement if you are looking to replace him, or indeed if you're looking to replace any defender really in your squad. And what we've got on screen, guys, is we've got the players in order 1 to 10. We've got their price there on screen. We've got their expected goal involvements over the course of this season. The stats are per 90 minutes, by the way, guys. So yeah, over the course of the season, what is their expected goal involvements per 90. We've got their defensive contributions per 90, and we've got their non-penalty expected goals allowed per 90 as well. We've got their rotation risk here as well. This is a little bit more, less statistical, I suppose. But the way I tried to judge rotation risk on these players is basically, if they are going to be low risk, I'm looking for players who play 90, well, start every game and play 90 minutes in 90% of the games pretty much. Those medium risk players are maybe players who play pretty much every game week in the Premier League, but maybe do miss a midweek games or get early substitutions. And we've seen that with Timber missing midweek games with rotation. Richards, same situation. Konate, we've seen some early subs for him as well, and rotation in various competitions. And of course, if we've got a high risk player, it is the players who don't play 90 minutes every week, aren't even, starting every week. And I know some people will say, O'Reilly has been starting in the last few weeks. That is fair enough. But when we come into this busy fixture schedule, particularly with Man City with a full bill of health in the defensive positions, we've got Ait-Nouri fully fit, ready to go now, for example. O'Reilly, unfortunately, when the fixtures get heavy, and they get heavy in the next couple of weeks, O'Reilly is going to become a risk in Premier League games. It is just an unfortunate fact for us, and I'm had to be pretty harsh with how I judge these players on their rotation risk, because everyone is a little bit riskier than they were before going into this period. So hopefully that makes sense for you guys. Of course, we've tried to color code things a little bit so you can kind of at a glance kind of see who tops the list in each of these stats. So for example, if you're looking for expected goal involvements, we're looking at Timber, Munoz and O'Reilly predominantly, with maybe a little bit of Vandenberg in there. If we're looking at defensive contributions, well, we know Senesi is way out on top, but Richards and Virgil also pretty good for those numbers. Konate, maybe a little bit better than you expected. If we're looking for the basically the best defenses, the players that play for the best defenses, of course, Arsenal way out in front there, but Man City just behind, and with Liverpool just behind there as well. And of course, we've got all of the fixtures over the next 8 game weeks. So there's loads of information on screen for you guys. And hopefully I've explained what you're looking at pretty well there. So of course, my number one replacement for Gabriel is still going to be Virgil. No change of heart there. If you don't fancy Virgil, going for Timber or Saliba looks pretty good as well. I think Saliba is safer for minutes, but obviously it is going to be a little bit worse for expected goal involvements. Neither player doing too well on defensive contributions. After that, we're probably looking at Crystal Palace players. If you want to spend the money, Munoz is going to be there for you. He's got very good expected goal involvements, better than really anyone on this list, bar Timber. And Richards is going to be here as well. A little bit lower for expected goal involvements, although this stat is not non-existent. I mean, it's still there. But his defensive contributions very, very good. Maybe with a little bit of rotation risk. But really, you know, a lot of people will be maybe thinking, okay, what about Lacroix? What about Mark Gay? I think, to be honest, I would just go for Richards, because I don't think there's enough of a difference between Richards and a Gay and a Lacroix, who are slightly worse for defensive contributions, but maybe slightly better for goal involvement. I don't know if I would spend the extra 0.5 there, to be honest. So that's why I've just put Richards here. If you do like Lacroix, Gahey, absolutely by all means. They are still Crystal Palace players, but I didn't want to just load up this list with Crystal Palace players, and I do prefer Richards to those guys. Going down the list, if you haven't got Senesi, still think he is a good pick. Obviously, Bournemouth have dropped down the list in terms of their defensive performances, but Senesi, defensive contribution master, and we've got some good fixtures coming up for him too. Konate is a cheaper alternative to Virgil if you really don't want to spend the money. His kind of stats here, you can see, are kind of middling, kind of average in every category. O'Reilly, basically high risk, high reward kind of player with some good fixtures coming up. De Ligt is here as well. I think he is really risky because actually Man United have not been a great defense. We've not really seen enough in terms of defensive contributions, and his expected goal involvements are really low. Don't let that goal the other week kind of change your mind. De Ligt is barely a goal threat at all in typical games anyway. And Vandenberg is also on this list, probably the strangest player on this list, but actually his numbers stand out as pretty good. Decent for expected goal involvements, okay for defensive contributions. Actually, one of the higher players on this list, kind of maybe mid-table, slightly above. His non-penalty expected goals allowed are not too bad, only slightly behind the likes of Liverpool, and the same as Crystal Palace, actually. And there's some nice fixtures coming up. I think a player like Vandenberg is maybe a player who you could maybe bring in, but you probably have to rotate him in and out of your squad, because there are some tougher fixtures here, but there are also some really nice fixtures. So I guess you have to kind of in, out, shake it all about with Vandenberg. But those are my favourite Gabriel replacements. I think I've covered all of the main players. If a player isn't on this list, I'm probably not super keen on them, to be honest, just because there are so many other options. So plenty of options in the defence. I'm sure you'll find a player in this list that you're going to like the look of as well. And hopefully, you know, just looking at the stats, you'll be able to find your own motivations for buying each of these players. Let's check out the projected goals according to the market data. This is from Rob T. This is the latest odds for us, guys. And yeah, Erling Haaland, even in a difficult away fixture against Newcastle, because he has such a high goal share at Manchester City, if City are to score, then Haaland is very likely to be involved. As such, 0.71 expected goals, or projected goals, should I say, this game week. Salah is not too far behind, though, and given that he gets extra points as a midfielder, if you do have Salah, I genuinely do think he could be the player to captain this game week. I know, controversial. After that, we see the likes of Mateta, 0.56. Isak is in here, as is Ekitike, depending on who starts. This data is, of course, assuming a player starts their game. Evan Nilsson is on this list, as is Welbeck. Saka pretty high as well. Semenyo, if he starts, 0.45 projected goals is really nice against West Ham. We see Delap and Joao Pedro pretty high here as well, 0.45 projected goals each. Same as Cody Gakpo, who looks like he's going to be starting if Florian Wirtz is going to be out. And then we've got some various other players on this list as well, so feel free to pause to check out all of the players on this list. There's some other interesting guys in here, like, you know, you've got Enzo, for example, 0.29, which is not too bad. Maybe Eze, 0.25. Various players. And Jai, 0.21. Yeah, Feel free to pause. Make sure to check out Rob T FPL on Twitter if you want to check these out on Twitter every week. And now for the bench list. So yes, guys, we have got a list of players. Again, this is one for you guys to pause if you want to take a look at the full list. But if you haven't seen this before, basically what we do is we try and list all of those players who maybe are on the peripheries of your starting 11. Some weeks you're going to bench these players. Other weeks you're going to start these players. Who should you start this week and who should you bench this week? So there's not going to be Haaland in this list. We're not going to see Salah or Saka in this list. Those are players that you play every week. But someone like Enzo Fernandez, for example, you might not be sure whether to start him or not this week. Well, you probably should. So yes, if you have a benching dilemma, look for the players that you currently own in this list, and whoever is higher on this list should be the higher priority to play. So for example, if you have Enzo and Joao Pedro, to take the top 2 players here, and you know you have to start one of these guys, then I would probably say that you're probably going to start Enzo over Joao Pedro. Probably. Is that fair? I don't know. I hope that's fair. Maybe some of you guys disagree, but of course, this is just opinion based. Those 2 players are super close regardless. But yeah, maybe a more extreme example would be like Enzo and Pedro Porro. If you could only start one of Enzo and Pedro Porro, then you're going to start Enzo according to the bench list, at least. So, yeah, feel free to go through these. A few players of note. Calafiori, I would still play him and hope that he is going to be available. Players like Richards, Gahey, Senesi, you're probably going to want to play these guys unless you have like a lot of Arsenal or Chelsea defenders, I would say. Pretty much. Players like Krupi Jr. unlikely to start this game week, so he's pretty low on this list, for example. Reinders, a little bit of rotation risk there, so he's going to be pretty low as well. And the Spurs players are going to be at the bottom, or at least the Spurs defenders are going to be at the bottom. To be honest, if you've got someone like Kudus, I would maybe think about benching him as well. He'd probably be around the middle of this list, maybe ahead of some of the defenders, but not all of them, just because of that difficult fixture against Arsenal. As for goalkeepers, yeah, you're going to prioritize playing Raya, Sanchez, Alisson if you have these guys. And if you have Dubravka as your backup goalkeeper, the only players I think I would play Dubravka over would be like Vicario or Sells this game week, I think. If you've got a Pope, if you've got a, I don't know, Pickford or something like that, I would still play these guys ahead of Dubravka because Newcastle, in particular, are a vastly superior defence than Burnley are. Even if you might say that Pope has a slightly more difficult fixture, he plays for the better defence. So I would still play Pope ahead of Dubravka. You know, I'd still play Donnarumma ahead of Dubravka. It would be a pretty straightforward decision there. So yes, those are your bench list players. I've made a little weekly wildcard team for you guys for anyone who is on a wildcard or wants to kind of look at what the template might look like at the moment. This is a Salah and Haaland team. I'll go through it for you guys. We've got Raya in goal, a defense of Virgil, Senesi and Richards. In midfield, we've got Salah, Rice, Minter and Sarr. And up front, Haaland, Mateta and Thiago. On the bench, we have Dubravka, Alderete, save 0.1 million on Mukiele now that Alderete is available, Vandenberg and Potts, who are probably not going to be available for this week, but maybe going to be coming back into the starting 11 from next week onwards. This team does actually cost 101.4 million. If you do need to make some downgrades to afford this team, I would be looking to probably downgrade Rice or Sarr first and taking them down to a midfielder in the 6 to 6.5 million range. Hopefully that will make things slightly more affordable. The other player that could potentially be downgraded in this team would be Senesi. All of the other players, I would be pretty direct with wanting to have them in the squad. So that is your weekly wildcard team. 101.4 million price, 97% hub rating. Pretty decent, I think. I like this team. If I was on a wildcard, this is what I would be doing, I'm pretty sure. And now let's go to my final decisions. And yes, indeed, it looks like we might see a price change for both Gabriel. Gabriel might drop in price and Virgil might rise in price. And it could happen tonight, overnight tonight. So for that reason, I'm going to make this transfer, Gabriel to Virgil tonight, just to avoid any price changes. We're pretty much guaranteed to have no new information on either Gabriel or Virgil between now and deadline. So I think we're safe to make this move at this point and, you know, deal with the price changes, get ahead of those price changes to make sure our team value is very healthy, as well as our squad being very healthy. I am going to start Semenyo, despite worries about his fitness. I'm happy for Alderete to come in and cover if needed. Hopefully we won't need to go any deeper into the bench, but there doesn't seem to be any other problems with any of my other players, so I'm not too worried about that. The final decision really for me is going to be who to captain. I'm currently on Haaland captain. I would be tempted to captain Saka or Mateta using players from my squad. If I had Salah, I would maybe go there as well. But right now, I'm not feeling super risky, so I might just stick with the safe, tried and trusted Erling Haaland on this particular game week. So yeah, that's where my captain's armband is right now. It is on Haaland, despite the weaker fixture against Newcastle away. And I'm pretty happy with that, I think, or at least I feel comfortable in that. But there's still that slight temptation to go elsewhere. So we're going to think about that between now and deadline, but I probably will captain Haaland. Yeah, so yeah, really the only big change, guys, is going to be Gabriel to Virgil is going to happen today as a transfer. And yeah, we're going to play Semenyo. And that's what my final decisions are. But let me know, guys, if you do have any final decisions to be made yourself and it hasn't been answered in this video, feel free to leave a comment. I'm pretty good at replying to comments, generally speaking. I do reply to it, like probably 2/3 of comments on videos every day. So yeah, if you have any further questions, I'll be more than happy to help you guys out. And of course, if you do find this content useful and you want to see it every week, please do let me know by simply leaving a like. If you just leave a like, that tells me, okay, this is what you guys want to see. So there you go, guys. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done already. Feel free to check out another video. Plenty of Game Week 12 content on the FPL Mate channel this week. But until next time, thank you so much for watching once again. I'll see you later, mates. Bye-bye.